this giant reed has so much energy, it's undescribable. It will grow in such a fashion that it's uncontrollable. This probably is the most invasive plant in the entire world. It is almost everywhere from Australia to Europe, Mediterranean, South America. It's everywhere. An idea where you have territories or areas on your property that are wild or they are less important to you, and you can plant invasive species in those areas with a purpose. This is for flood protection, so the river doesn't take all this soil with it. And if I wasn't happy with having this here, I most likely will never be able to eradicate it. I will not be able to get rid of this giant reed here. It will take over. The roots will go way down into the water table. The plants will grow incredibly fast and strong. That's a choice you have to make with invasive plants. This idea of losing the land and all the topsoil to the river is a worse consequence than having this invasive plant protecting the shore. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Invasive plants are always a tricky question or a tricky problem for people. But in this case, I think we're doing the right thing by protecting the shoreline with this plant. I know there's a lot of places in the warmer parts of the United States where this reed is incredibly invasive and has taken over large areas of the countryside. But if it was really turned into biofuel and it had a function and it was harvested to make baskets and bamboo poles, like these get really strong. You can make poles out of them. So there is that idea of maybe the right plant in the right place is the way to go when you're dealing with these invasive species. It has a lot of very interesting characteristics. It grows incredibly fast. It grows purely through rhizomes. So the rhizomes, I'll show it down by the river. It sends out these shoots and it just catches like crazy. So what we do is we cut this at the bottom and we lay it down flat. And I'm going to show you in the river how quickly they sprout out through these little guys here. And they attach roots to the bottom. So if you bury this, this will start to create roots right away. It's that powerful of a plant. This has a huge future in biofuels. It grows so fast that you could cut this down and in 2 weeks it would be half the height again. So it's very similar to the effects that bamboo have on our economy. It's a great biofuel and it's being used extensively in the Mediterranean to burn to create energy. Arondodonax is the Latin name for this. It is very interesting as well because it grows from the center out. So it'll send off life growth to the side. If one of these falls down into the river and touches the soil, it will start to sprout immediately. Another big characteristic of this is that this is on river's edges and the pieces break off through the current and get pushed somewhere downstream and they will establish themselves again. So it's a very prolific plant that has a really good quality of protecting shorelines. So if you have a problem with, like we do, where we lose our land to these massive storms, the best way to deal with it is by planting this plant, this giant reed, directly on the shoreline. It has no problem getting wet feet. It actually thrives in it. The temperature restrictions are minimum requirement of a temperature of 7 degrees, and it doesn't like extreme heat. It doesn't really like the 30, 40 degrees unless it's got its feet in the water. Okay, I'm going to show you how I propagate this. I'm going to cut this down. This little guy. We're going to go to the river and plant these. Yeah, so we've got a couple of them growing here already. I'm going to show you how I plant this. I want to intertwine it with others that have been here, so it's all tangled up. So that's what I do, is I bury it like that, or I put it in this space, and I'll come back and I'll just grab some sand and I'll cover it up. And with absolutely no time, this will start to send out new shoots, new roots, and take off like crazy. I'll show you some areas here. Like if you look at this here, my task is to get this touching the ground. If I can do that, if I can get this buried, these little nibs, if I can get them all buried, they will take off like crazy. So what I do a lot of times is I weigh them down with some stones. Not heavy enough. Then I'll come back and bury it. And these rhizomes, or these shoots that come out the side, they have the ability to turn into roots right away. So by creating a connection to the ground, these will turn into individual plants. Even though they're connected to each other, they will basically behave like they're new offshoots or new plants, and they'll get very powerful from having a connection to the ground. So it's very important to keep charge of making sure these plants have contact to the soil, and that'll make all the difference in the world, basically allowing them to grow freely because they have that connection. So this giant reed is one of the best plants used to protect shorelines from these massive storms that we're having all the time. It is invasive, yes, but it has a very strong function in protecting shorelines and growing a lot of biomass. You could use this basically for creating electricity and other energy sources that they're using these materials for. Because you cut them down, 2 weeks later they're 4 feet tall again, or 6 feet tall already. So it goes very fast, creating a protective barrier by using these grasses where they're needed, in terms of not losing all this topsoil and soil to the river itself. We have all these shoots coming out, but they're in midair. We need to get this into the gravel. So I'm basically just pinning it down with a rock. Now, there's this real call for plants for specific locations. And what I mean by that is, if we planted something here that doesn't like wet feet, doesn't like to have the roots constantly wet, it wouldn't do so well. But by having a plant that is perfect for the location, you're going to get really good results. And it's going to protect the river for the next 10 years. It's going to be very hard to eradicate this. The other issue we have here in Ecuador, and I call it the machete syndrome, people show up with machetes on private property anywhere, and they'll cut down everything. So it's a real benefit that if you cut these shoots that come up, if you cut them down, they'll start to grow again. You'd have to eradicate this by digging it out. It's the only way you can get around it. So remember, you need to pick the right plant for the right location with the right purpose. If you can do that, you'll have a very strong garden with lots of plants that are purposefully planted in very specific locations.